Hey everyone, it's been a little while since I made a video for the channel, so I wanted to throw something out there. It's been cold, it's winter here, so we haven't had a whole lot to do with the ambulance. It's been sitting out there resting comfortably in the cold, waiting on the snow. So we're in the garage. You can see the Jeep is over there on the other side of this pile of tools and whatnot. This is the go-kart that I was talking about that I've been working on. So this go-kart actually belongs to the Shrine. I'm a Shriner. So, if you're familiar with the Shriners, they have lots of go-karts and fun little toys that they put in the parades to entertain the kids and get everybody all excited. So, this particular go-kart looks like a mini big rig truck. It's patterned after a either a Peterbilt or a Kenworth. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. There's a little bumper plate around here somewhere. So our original karts were 25 years old. They've been through a lot of parades. They've been broken and patched back together and broken and patched back together over and over again. So we came up with the idea of let's build a new kart. And we're going to include a lot of ideas in it that, you know, we kind of wanted to see. One of them being better brakes. They had the original band brakes in the back, and we upgraded some of them to drum brakes in the back, and they work a little bit better. But the new ones are getting disc brakes. So we have disc brake assemblies that we're going to put on the front. See, here's the caliper for one side. There's a caliper on the other side. There's the master cylinder sitting right here on the other side of this bracket. I know it's hard to see given the way that we've got it all set up. And we added a disc brake assembly to the rear. And we had to do a little bit of extra work to do that. Normally it comes with a flexible line, but 86 inches. These karts are really long. They're a lot longer than a regular go-kart. So that long of a flexi line, we were losing pressure and it really wasn't working all that well on the back. So we converted to a hard line, which you can see right here under my thumb. And then we have rubber lines from the master cylinder to the splitter, and then the splitter, there's a hard line that goes to the back, and then we can go into more detail with that later. So, the other thing we found when I built this particular chassis, it's a different design than the original ones. The original ones were a flat plane chassis. There was only one layer to it. There was no truss type system. There we go. There was no triangulation. It was just flat plane. So it tended to flex and move around a little bit. If you picked up the front end of it, the chassis would flex before it'd come up off the ground, all this sort of thing. So we didn't think that was a good idea. So we built this one. And then we found out something when we had the straight axle on the front end of it is actually too rigid. It's a truss. You can see it's kind of a square chassis, but it's also tapered from the back to the front. So it's narrow in the front. It's also shorter in the front than it is in the back. So it narrows down in the front, top to bottom, narrows down side to side. So it's very strong. It's very rigid. And we found that when we were driving it for a test drive, any inconsistencies in the pavement, one front tire would be off the ground or the other because the chassis just does not flex, which we kind of think is a good thing because, you know, it's really long, and when you put a full-size adult in these, they're not for kids, they are for full-grown adults, and, you know, Shriners are well-fed individuals, so we're not small guys. You're putting a lot of weight in this kart, and you want to make sure that the brakes work really well. We generally don't drive that fast in the parades, about 5 miles an hour, but there's kids on both sides, there's pedestrians in the crosswalks, you got vendors trying to sell balloons and bubble machines and whatnot for the kids, and all the, so you don't want to run over anybody. So we want to make sure the brakes work really well. Well, they did, but whatever tire was off the ground because of the inconsistencies in the pavement, that tire would lock, and then when it would touch the ground, it'd jerk you one way or the other, and it really isn't a good way to drive these things. Plus, they were a little bit unstable at higher speeds because they were built with 0 caster and like 12 degrees of camber built in them. The tires look like they were like riding all stanced out. So these are our tires that we're riding on, and if you're looking at the front of the truck, the tires are laying, you know, literally like this on each side. And people are pointing out, hey, your axles are broken. And they're not. They're just set up completely wrong. So we're going to bring the tires back closer to straight. There's going to have like 2 degrees of camber to them and 5 degrees of caster. That'll help them turn nice and smooth, be even at high speeds. Because when we get them off the truck to the beginning of the parade, we tend to drive a little bit faster because it's, you know, empty parking lots, empty road. And at the end of the parade, back to the truck to load them up and bring them back, we tend to drive a little bit faster because we've got to get back to where we're going. So we need them to drive a little bit faster than 5 miles an hour. I won't tell you right now how fast they actually go, but it's pretty fast. So we'll go through a little bit of stuff with this chassis over the next handful of videos. Done a ton of changes to it. And I'll even show you the original and what's sitting down here. We've got the original bodywork to this. It's in storage right now. You can see the red piece up here. This is the deck that actually goes over the back tires. It's got 2 axles in the back. Only one of them drives. One of them's a floating axle just to make it look like a truck. It's got a 212 Predator motor in it with a torque vector torque converter on it. So it's got a belt drive system on it and a chain drive. So this chassis is a lot lighter. It's probably about 40 pounds lighter than the original chassis. So that's the other thing we're looking at is it's so much lighter and it doesn't have nearly as much weight on the front end of it. We want to make sure that we keep it stable. So to do that, what we are doing is I was going to show you the original axle that I had built for it. I had built a straight axle and I took it out. So what we're doing is we're building a independent front suspension. So you have an upper A-arm here. It doesn't really look like an A, but here's the upper A-arm. And here's the lower arm, which is going to bolt down in there. I'll pick it up later. And we have short springs. They're only about 2 or 3 inches tall. They're actually the valve spring out of a Miata 1.8 motor that my son had for his old Miata. So we don't know if that's going to work. We hope it will, because we only need just a couple of inches of flex in either side. 2 to 3 inches is really all we need, because we're not trying to take them off-road. We don't need, you know, 14 inches of suspension travel or anything like that. Just a couple inches to absorb inconsistencies in the pavement and keep the tires on the ground. So I put this one together, and it looks like it's going to work. I'm a little concerned that the valve spring is a little light. I may have some old Chevy springs around here, because I got a 350 outside in my old Nova that probably has some valve springs laying around for it. If not, I can buy a bigger spring. The first one's a prototype. Once we figure out what works, we can duplicate it in all the others. So this is what I'm working on right now. Ask lots of questions. I'm more than happy to show you where we're at with this, what we're trying to do with it. I've got pictures of the design. I did a whole CAD design for this thing. The idea is we make this one, we make it right, we do everything we want to do with it, with the brakes. We're going to have adjustable height, steering wheel. The seat, you know, is adjustable now. It wasn't on the previous one. We got custom diamond plate, gas pedal, and brake pedal added into it. A lot of other little things. We're going to build this one, make it right, make it do everything we want to do. Figure out all the math, get all the little geometries straightened out, figure out what bolts we need, what brackets we need. And once we get this one right, take it back up to the shrine and then say, okay, now let's make 9 more of these, or 10 more of these, or however many more. So we're kind of taking our time with this one to get it done right. I'm trying not to cut any corners or make it, you know, halfway done. You know, take a little bit of time, do it the right way, don't compromise on it, so that when we are done with the product, what we have is something we can put in the parades, we can run them for years, ease a lot of the maintenance. A lot of the other ones, a lot of bolts and brackets didn't match each other. Some have toggle switches for the motor, some have keyed switches, some have, you know, push buttons. We'd want to standardize everything. All the carts should look absolutely identical. They should all run the same, they should drive the same. So we want to get this one exactly right and then duplicate it piece by piece. It's one of the things I did with the design of this one as much of the measurements as possible with this thing come out to the nearest 1/4 inch. Everything is, you know, a whole inch, or, you know, if I have to go to a 1/4 inch, it's a 1/4 inch. There's no, you know, 5 and 11/16 or some crap like that. It's all 1/4 inches. And as much as possible, it's all straight lines. There's no curves on the chassis. I want to be able to take this to a fabrication shop or to, you know, some home fabricators and say, here, duplicate this. And it's all straight cuts, simple cuts. You make 10 of this bracket, 10 of this bracket, 10 of this bracket, 10 of this bracket, and then just weld it all together. That's the idea. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to close this video out and get this posted. And then get back to work on the suspension. I got 1 or 2 more things to button up on this side before I can start on the other side. So post your questions, post your comments, and we'll talk to you guys later.